They call me a success story, a self-made millionaire, a woman who built an empire from nothing. But what they don't know, what they'll never read in glossy magazines or hear on podcasts, is the truth about how I got here. The truth is that I didn't climb the ladder. I pushed someone off it. His name was Daniel. My business partner. My friend. The one who believed in me when I had nothing. And today, as I sit in this penthouse overlooking the city that applauds my name, I can still hear his voice. Laura, don't forget where we started. But I did. And now, I live with the weight of what I did to him. This isn't a motivational story. It's a confession. Because every empire built on betrayal eventually crumbles. Even if it glitters for a while. I met Daniel 6 years ago in a cramped co-working space downtown. We were both broke, hungry, and full of ideas. He was the visionary, the one who saw possibilities where others saw walls. And me? I was the strategist. The one who could turn a sketch on a napkin into a plan that made sense. We were the perfect pair, or so it seemed. Daniel had this way of believing in people. He'd look at you like you were already who you wanted to be. He believed in me. Too much, maybe. Together, we built something small, a digital marketing agency that helped local brands grow. We called it LND Concepts, Laura and Daniel. The first few months were hell. We barely made rent. We'd stay up all night pitching to clients who never replied. But Daniel never gave up. He'd smile and say, Laura, one day we'll laugh about this. And I believed him. The turning point came when we landed our first big client, a fashion brand. They wanted a full campaign, branding, strategy, social media, everything. We worked for weeks. No sleep. No breaks. And when that campaign went viral, money started to flow in. Investors began calling. Journalists wanted interviews. Suddenly, we were somebody. But success has a strange way of changing people. Or maybe it just reveals who they've always been. Daniel wanted to grow slowly, keep things authentic. He cared about people, the team, the clients, the message. But I cared about winning. I wanted more clients, more power, more recognition. I remember the night it started to shift. We were sitting in the office, empty pizza boxes everywhere, and I told him we should take the investor's offer. He said, Laura, money isn't everything. I laughed. Not because he was wrong, but because deep down, I already knew I didn't agree. That was the first time I realized, Daniel and I didn't share the same dream anymore. We built something together, but we were beginning to dream in different directions. And I knew, one day, one of us would have to go. The offer came on a Wednesday morning. I remember because Daniel was late, he'd been at his niece's school recital. He always had time for people. I didn't. That day, a man named Mr. Hartwell walked into our office. A quiet man, but you could feel power in his presence. He represented one of the biggest tech firms in the country, and they wanted us. Or maybe, they wanted me. He told me they were impressed with our work, with my leadership, my strategy. They were expanding and wanted to merge our agency into their larger brand. A merger worth millions. I remember my heart pounding as he spoke. I saw the future flashing in front of me, luxury, influence, freedom. But then he said something that made me pause. Of course, Laura, partnerships can be complicated. Investors prefer a single decision maker. That was it. One sentence. One seed. And from that moment, it began to grow, quietly, dangerously. When Daniel came in later, cheerful, coffee in hand, I didn't tell him everything. I said we had an interesting opportunity. He smiled, excited. He trusted me. I wish he hadn't. Over the next few days, I kept in touch with Hartwell behind Daniel's back. They wanted a single founder, no shared control. I told myself it was just business. That Daniel was too cautious, too slow. That he was holding me back. I started rewriting contracts in secret. Changing email permissions. Moving client data. All the while, I smiled at Daniel like nothing was wrong. He thought I was his partner. But in truth, I was preparing to become his replacement. One night, he walked into the office unexpectedly. I was still there, drafting a document that would remove his name from a key proposal. He looked at me and said softly, "Laura, you've changed." I remember the chill that ran through me. I wanted to say something, to explain, but instead, I said, "No, Daniel. I've just grown up." That was the last night he smiled at me. And deep down, I think that was the night I lost whatever part of me was still human. The day it happened, it didn't feel evil. It felt strategic. That's how darkness wins, not with fire and fury, but with logic and paperwork. Mr. Hartwell's company sent over the final contract. All it needed was a single signature, mine. It would transfer ownership of L&D Concepts entirely under my name. Daniel would receive a severance package and a quiet clause, enough money to disappear, but not enough to fight. I told myself I was doing him a favor. He hated pressure, hated politics. Maybe, I thought, he'd be happier without it all. He came into the office that morning wearing the same blue shirt he'd worn the day we signed our first client. He smiled and said, "Laura, I've been thinking. Maybe we should slow down. I don't trust this merger." My hands were shaking under the desk. I told him, "It's already done." He looked at me, confused. "What do you mean?" I turned the papers toward him. My name was the only one printed on the document header. For a long moment, he didn't speak. He just stared. Then he whispered, "You took it all?" I didn't answer. He laughed, not the happy kind. The kind that sounds like something breaking. "I trusted you, Laura. We built this together." I said, "No, Daniel. I built this. You just dreamed." He gathered his things quietly. No shouting. No threats. Just a look, a deep, hollow look that's burned into my memory. Before leaving, he turned to me and said, "One day, you'll realize what you destroyed wasn't me, it was you." I told myself I didn't care. But when the door closed behind him, the silence was deafening. I sat there, staring at my reflection in the office window, the city lights behind me, the contract in front of me, and for the first time, I didn't recognize the woman I had become. That was the day I became a millionaire. And the day I lost everything that ever made me human. After Daniel left, everything happened fast. Headlines. Interviews. Magazine covers calling me the woman who built an empire from scratch. The investors loved me, sharp, fearless, decisive. Clients lined up, journalists quoted me, people called me an inspiration. And I played the part perfectly. Designer suits. Private cars. An office that overlooked the skyline. I smiled for cameras, I laughed at galas. But the laughter never reached my eyes. Every night I came home to silence. No Daniel staying late, cracking jokes. No one to say, "We did it." I told myself that loneliness was the price of greatness. I said it so many times I almost believed it. There were nights when I'd pour a glass of wine and scroll through old photos, the early days in that cramped co-working space. Two faces beaming with hope. I'd swipe past them quickly, pretending it didn't sting. Then the awards started coming. Businesswoman of the Year. Top Innovator Under 40. Everyone applauded. Everyone except the one person whose applause mattered. Sometimes, at events, people asked about Daniel. Wasn't there another founder? I'd smile and say, he moved on to other things. A simple lie. But lies, I learned, don't disappear, they multiply. I started hearing whispers that Daniel was struggling. That he'd tried to start again but couldn't find investors. That his health was failing. I ignored them. I told myself, he made his choices. Yet every time I saw my reflection in a polished award, it looked a little less like me. Success without peace is just a slower kind of failure. And deep down, I knew something was coming. A reckoning I couldn't avoid. The first sign came in a simple email. Subject: we need to talk. It was from Daniel. After 3 years of silence. My fingers froze over the keyboard. For a second, I thought about deleting it. Pretending I never saw it. But curiosity, or guilt, wouldn't let me. He wanted to meet, one last time. I don't want revenge, he wrote. I just need to look you in the eyes again. I met him in a small cafe on the edge of the city. He looked thinner, older, like someone who'd carried too much weight for too long. He smiled. You look successful. I tried to smile back, but my throat was dry. He reached into his bag and pulled out a single folder. These are your numbers, he said. The company's filings. Your investors. Your taxes. I frowned. Why are you showing me this? He said quietly, because they're not clean, Laura. You've been too busy being a star to see what Hartwell's people have been doing behind your back. I flipped through the pages. Shell accounts. Hidden transactions. Money being siphoned away in my name. My name. Daniel sighed. I tried to warn you once. You didn't listen. I'm warning you now because, despite everything, I don't want to see you destroyed. I wanted to shout at him. To accuse him of setting me up. But deep down I knew, he was right. That night, I went home and poured myself a drink. The view from my penthouse no longer looked like victory, it looked like a trap. Within weeks, the press started circling. Audits. Investigations. Lawsuits. My empire was cracking from the inside. I called Hartwell, but he didn't answer. His number was disconnected. My so-called allies vanished. And suddenly, I was alone again, just like the beginning. Only this time, I had more to lose. Daniel hadn't ruined me. I'd done that all by myself. They say the higher you climb, the harder you fall. I used to laugh at that. Until it happened to me. The investigations tore through everything. Bank accounts frozen. Clients withdrawn. My face splashed across headlines that once called me brilliant. Fraud allegations against L&D Concepts CEO. No one stood by me. Not the investors, not the magazines, not the people who once called me their mentor. Even my closest employees stopped meeting my eyes. The empire I built on betrayal was collapsing, brick by brick. And then, one evening, I saw Daniel again. Outside the courthouse. He didn't gloat. He didn't smile. He just said, I told you one day you'd realize what you destroyed. For the first time, I didn't have an answer. I lost everything that day. The company, the money, the penthouse. And strangely, it felt clean. I moved into a small apartment outside the city. No interviews. No attention. Just silence. I started writing again, something Daniel and I used to do before the business. Little notes about who we wanted to become. I found one he'd written years ago, folded between old contracts. It said, "Success means nothing if you lose your soul along the way." That's why I'm telling this story. Not to ask for forgiveness. Not to be pitied. But so that maybe, someone listening won't make the same mistake I did. You can chase the world and still end up empty-handed. You can win every battle and still lose yourself. I thought being a millionaire meant freedom. But real freedom is looking in the mirror and not hating the person who stares back. My name is Laura. And this is my confession.